Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to you all. From those down the road to the folks around the world. Welcome back to another video, well, a long-awaited video, talking about the weather. And in fact, one of the most devastating and one of the most famous cyclones that hit the Northern Territory of Australia in 1974. So here's the video. In order to start this story, I have to go back to the very beginning of December 1974. On the 1st of December, the weather agencies and cyclone monitoring systems noted that Selma, one of these named cyclones, was making its way slowly towards Darwin. But in the 9 days that it formed and then dissipated, it never actually made landfall. So when on the 21st of December, Cyclone Tracy was named and proclaimed as a cyclone, the people of Darwin somewhat assumed that, like Selma, Tracy would simply skirt round the city or would not make landfall at all. Tracy was initially spotted on the 20th of December as a tropical storm, some 600 kilometres northeast of Darwin in the Arafura Sea. And over the next 2 days, it was upgraded to a cyclone, like I previously mentioned, but came within 200 kilometres north of the city of Darwin. But come Christmas Eve, things were about to get a lot worse. At 9 a.m, the cyclone passed over Bathurst Island, which is just north of Darwin. But over the course of that morning, the scientists began to realise that the direction of Cyclone Tracy was now changing. And so at 12:30 in the afternoon, a flash cyclone warning was issued to the people of Darwin, saying that imminent danger to the city was about to occur. You see, what was happening was that the cyclone was moving over Bathurst Island, but then almost double backing on itself, now going in a southeasterly direction towards the city of Darwin itself. And over the course of that afternoon, the skies became overcast, gloomy and dark. Midnight, a moment where Santa would be delivering his gifts to all the children of Australia. But instead, Cyclone Tracy was making landfall at East Point, Darwin. Over the next 7 hours, Cyclone Tracy would go from East Point to the airport towards the city of Darwin itself, recording winds of 100 kilometres an hour and gusts of roughly, on average, 195 kilometres an hour. The system that was recording these winds at the airport broke when it recorded a 217 kilometre an hour gust. And by the damage that was later assessed, it could be presumed that some of the winds and gusts were up to 250 kilometres an hour, although that is a rough estimate. The eye of the storm passed over the Darwin airport at about 4 a.m. on Christmas Day, and at 7 a.m. most of the obliterating winds and high gusts rapidly decreased, making its way southeast away from Darwin towards Arnhem Land and the Gulf of Carpentaria. Cyclone Tracy is noted as one of the most powerful and disastrous cyclones ever recorded in Australian history. All 48,000 people that lived in Darwin were made homeless. All of the houses were destroyed. In fact, most of the city was completely obliterated in this one single evening. And up to $500 million to $1 billion worth of damages was done, as I say, in just one single evening. The Australian government wasted no time in sending one of their top army generals up to Darwin to assess the disaster zone. Major General Alan Stretton flew up to Darwin late on the 25th of December, and within a week he became the relief commander and a statutory authority set up to organise and rebuild the city. Stretton's first port of call was to evacuate the majority of the 48,000 people that were living in Darwin. He organised the Australian Air Force, the American Air Force, and some of the commercial airlines to evacuate up to 25,000 people over a 5-day period out of Darwin. And in that same 5-day period following Cyclone Tracy, some 10,000 evacuated the city by road. Those that were going by road would have to have passed over certain roadblocks that were designed to monitor the number of people leaving the city. But they were given certain petrol vouchers so that they could actually fill their cars and leave the city with haste. But re-entry was made very difficult and restricted, especially in the immediate aftermath of Cyclone Tracy. Those that did remain were placed under a temporary martial rule. But even after Cyclone Tracy had been and gone and the city was rebuilt, some 60% of the population that left never actually returned to their homes in Darwin. Once the evacuations had concluded in the New Year's of 1975, Stretton then proceeded with his clean-up operation, removing any health hazards and unfortunately destroying any stray dogs that had been left behind by some of the evacuees. But it was also about planning the groundwork, the re-establishment of those groundworks for the reconstruction and the rehabiting of the Darwin area. People started to return back to their city of Darwin towards the end of January and early February of 1975. The Darwin Reconstruction Commission, this statutory authority that had been set up on New Year's Eve, was implemented to reconstruct the city of Darwin over the next 5 years. And after quite a slow start in the 1975-76 period, by 1978, most, if not all, of the houses that had been destroyed by Cyclone Tracy were rebuilt. But of course, like I mentioned earlier, 60% of that population that had been in Darwin before the cyclone did not return to their once prideful city. Following the reconstruction phase of Darwin, on the 22nd of June 1978, the central government decided to pass the Northern Territory Self-Government Act, which meant that Darwin, and indeed the Northern Territory, became its own state, became its own autonomous system and government. Whereas in its previous 100 years, as I've noted in previous videos, it was either ruled and regulated by the South Australian state or indeed from central government based in Canberra, which is too far away when you have a crisis all the way 2,000 kilometres in the north. And so, to conclude this video and the series of videos about the city of Darwin, it takes some of the most devastating moments of this city's history to create what we know as the city of Darwin today, from bombing raids to cyclones to the influx of people that make the city of Darwin their home today. And I hope indeed that you have enjoyed the rest of the videos that I have created over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. Tune in next week for something brand new, something different, and I hope to see you all then. See you later.